Hello everyone, this is Amin Parker, and this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos. I guess you can say I'm crossing over into a new genre, but that's probably just going to be for this particular video. But you never know with me. So today, my daughter was texting me and we were talking about red robes. The significance of the color red, it pops up a lot. The Pope, the elites, they wear red robes. They also wear red shoes. It appears that this color red is symbolic in a lot of ways. Real life footage exists of people out there in the world doing satanic rituals. Yes, I'm not lying to you. Videos like that exist. And if you look carefully, you will see people wearing the color red. Red shoes, robes, even neckties. But what really blew me away was when my daughter sent me a video of a man dressed like Satan, wearing the color red and dancing like an idiot. Oh my goodness. I don't know what is going through people's mind. Well, with that being said, without further ado, this video is going to have a couple of parts to it. So the first part, I'm going to let you guys listen to different people talk about the different styles of clothing, robes, even male tights that used to be worn in times past. Sometimes the coloring of those tights would dictate whether or not that person is actually owned by someone else, or if that person had high status in society. Keep in mind the color red is prominent also back in those times. Okay? That's going to be one section of the video. You'll hear different people talk about that. Then the final section of this video is going to be sort of like a rant, where I'm going to be going on a rant about an actor that I've seen on video that my daughter sent to me, of an actor, and he says something that is absolutely ridiculous to me. He says something that just doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm not going to spoil that, so I'll leave that towards the end of the video. But let's begin the video now.
15th to 16th century male fashion had a preoccupation with masculinity, military prowess, and virility. One popular clothing item that reflected those values was the codpiece. There are two potential reasons for the invention of the codpiece. Syphilis, otherwise known as the French pox, required messy ointments to treat infection, so the codpiece kept the fancy clothes clean during treatment. The second reason was for modesty. For 15th century men, the uniform of snug stockings and short doublets left little to the imagination, so the codpiece helped provide some modesty to men's pretty members. By 1600, the codpiece trend died off due to male fashion becoming more feminine.
This outfit right here was the trending fashion for men in 15th century Florence. It's not a dress, it's a type of short coat or sideless tunic that evolved from the surcoat known as the giornea or giubbello. Men of all classes wore these, including peasants, servants, and the elites. It's just all about the fabric, color, and the details. For example, the pleating could be created by just belting it, or it could have been made with the pleated folds, which in this case would take more time and skill. Here you can even see a young boy wearing one. Originally, they were just a rectangle piece of fabric with an opening for the head, and then they were layer made with pleats and decorative folds, embroidered details, as well as decorative and fur trims. The fabrics would be the typical wool or silk, and sometimes be lined with a different color underneath. There was also 3 ways that these could be worn. You could do completely belted only in the front, and not belted at all. And they would even be worn over armor. Also, the younger men preferred short lengths like this, while the older men would wear theirs a little bit longer. By the end of the 15th century, you begin to see less of these, and by the early 1500s, they pretty much were out of style as codpieces started being worn, and men really wanted to show those off. This is an original giornea from 1481 that was found on the remains of a 33-year-old Italian nobleman, Diego Gavaniglia, in 2004. At the top, you can see how it was found, and at the bottom is what it would have looked like on. Be sure to follow for more medieval and Renaissance fashion history. But they're a little bit different than what you might expect. So first of all, they were made of wool, velvet, or silk, and they were fitted to the leg, but they were not a super elastic material. Each leg was also a separate piece, which you can see here, and here worn with underwear underneath. And they would be held up by being tied to their underwear, hose belts, or even their jackets. Here's another good example of how each individual piece was tied. Some of them even included a leather sole at the bottom of the foot, so it's like a shoe and trouser all in one. This is why in many images it looks like men aren't wearing any shoes. It was just conveniently built in. By the 15th century, men's jackets became shorter, so in order to avoid any exposing of their behind, the 2 pieces were made to come together at the back. As for the front, that's where the oh-so-stylish codpiece came in. Make sure to follow for more medieval and Renaissance fashion. I'm sure you wondered why men wore different colored tights, right? So usually it was servants or other working members of a household so that they could be identified as being part of that household. So in this painting of Ludovico Gonzaga, he has his servants wearing red and white. That way he could always identify who his workers were, and so could everybody else. So the colors and patterns would always be related to the family coat of arms or whatever colors the leader chose. Cloaks worn during the Middle Ages. It's called a mantello and was popular in Italy among wealthy men. This type of cloak had no hood and it had a small standing collar, which you can see right there. And it often didn't have a visible clasp for the closure, but if it did, it would have looked something small like this. There are some portraits in which the man is wearing it unfastened at the neck with it just sitting on his shoulders, and in these portraits we can see that they would wear these cloaks over other garments like the giornia or the farsetto. The mantello would have most likely been made out of wool or silk, and like with many other outer garments, it would have been lined with fur at times to keep the wearer warm. And as far as colors go, red and black were the most popular.
John of England. Notice I'm not using any numbers here. There's a good reason for this. He's the worst English king in all of history. And the reason for this is really threefold, but we'll get to that. John comes to the throne in 1199 after the death of his brother Richard the Lionheart. He wasn't a very good brother. He eventually become. During his kingship, however, he would get into more trouble. What kind of trouble do you ask? Well, let's go through these one by one. First, he would irritate the papacy so much, this guy in particular, a man named Innocent III, excommunicate John, he excommunicated the entire country of England, and this forced John to eventually have to do penance to the Pope in order to get unexcommunicated. On top of that, he managed to lose all of the English holdings, or at least most of them, in the Kingdom of France to a king named Philip II. The reason why he did this is because he pursued a courtier of a French nobleman. This ultimately led him into a dispute of if he was a vassal to the King of France or if he owned the lands in France. John managed to lose all of his lands in France, he managed to excommunicate the entire country of England, and he also managed to lose a lot of his powers to the nobility. This is why there's never been a King John, and there never will be again for all of English history.
We have been wearing a gamurra. The gamurra was a pretty basic and practical dress, but the material it was made out of would vary upon the status of the woman or the purpose it was being used for. The gamurra, worn over a camicia, consisted of a fitted bodice that laced at the front and a full skirt. The dress would be made in a variety of fabrics, colors, and even sleeve styles, and they would also be lined with linen. For the lower and middle class women, the gamurra would be made out of wool and often solid and dark colors, while upper class women would have theirs made with different fabrics like silk and brocade and with more elaborate detailing. In the earlier years, the bodice would be made to tie at the front, and the sleeves were attached to the dress. In later years, the bodice would tie at the sides, and the sleeves were made separately from the dress and then laced onto the bodice. This meant the sleeves would often be made in different colors or contain more embroidery or detail than the bodice. Some sleeves would be adorned with gems, pearls, and even gold. After the 1450s, the dress would often be worn with a giornia, which is like an overcoat when outside during the colder months. You'll see this dress style being worn by Italian women in countless portraits and frescoes.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is a different type of video that you're seeing from me, but this is in fact a rant video. So what you've seen in the beginning of the video is pretty much good information, talking about the type of robes, garment that men wore in times past, that women wore in times past. And throughout the ages, clothing has changed. But if you noticed, the color red has become very prominent, but not for good reasons either. We all know that Disney uses red when they draw women. It's because they want to make the women seem very seductive and attractive in a sense. But when it comes to the color red, within certain parts of life, within certain areas of life, the color red actually symbolizes something. And typically is not a good thing. In some opinions, the color red actually represents Satanism. Now, I know it sounds strange to some people who probably never heard of that, but what I've shown in the beginning of this video should form an idea of why the color red is a prominent color and not for the good reasons that you may think. This man on the screen here is a famous actor. I'm not going to bash him in this video. I'm not going to bash anybody on this channel. But he said something recently that was kind of strange. He seen that the host was wearing red shoes. That's right. Red shoes. And he said that he liked the way those red shoes looked. So much so that it almost seemed like he was becoming giddy over it. So much so that he said that he might kiss those shoes. He said that he might kiss those red shoes. Why is he praising this man's red shoes? What is it about the red shoe? What is it about the red robe? What is it about the color red that have so many people acting strange? Almost as if the color red means they're going to get everything that their heart ever desire. I know this all sounds kind of weird. This is not the typical video that I normally do. But when I heard this actor, and I already know his name, but I'm not going to say it. But when I heard him say it, that he might kiss those shoes, I really just, that rubbed me the wrong way, actually. And that's why I made this video. Because I think people need to get a grip of reality. Get a grip on reality, people. And I'm not just focusing on him, but I'm just saying people in general need to stop idolizing items, materials. I mean, when he said that he might kiss those shoes, it almost sounded like he wanted to impregnate those shoes. Now, I know that sounds stupid, but the way he said it made it sound like he wanted to make a family with those shoes and make little shoelets and raise the little shoelets. That's how ridiculous it all sounds. But that's all I got for this video.